No, I'm just kidding. It's a fuel pump. Sorry. Fuck, that was perfect. Cut it. So no, not a fuel pump, but the actual power steering. All wrapped up, all done. Power steering is back in, you know, the engine bay.
We go underneath.
What is up, you guys? We are back with another video for the Hellcat, and as you guys can see, we got a little surprise for you guys today. The fact that these gas prices keep going up and all our money goes into the actual Hellcat, we decided to get ourselves a secondary supercharger. No, I'm just kidding. It's a fuel pump. So no, not a fuel pump, but the actual power steering. So in this video, we're going to show you guys how to install it in case you took your Hellcat to a sideshow and you fucked up your power steering. Unfortunately, our power steering pump hasn't gone out, but it is on its way out. Now I'm not sure how the previous driver was driving it. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But it's okay. We're gonna swap it out today, and we're gonna show you guys exactly what tools you'll need and how to go about swapping it out. Apart from being stamped Mopar, only thing that really comes in the actual package is obviously the power steering pump and some foam. That's pretty much it, so don't expect much. Everything's already assembled with the pulley and the actual reservoir. So let's get to installing. Let us start with the install by we're gonna jack up the car. If you guys remember, the jack stand's actually gonna go where the triangle is on the actual frame of the Hellcat. All right, so the kitty is up on jack stands. You guys can see we mounted it by the triangle on the frame, and we got both sides, so we are good to go. Let's go to the engine bay. In order to locate the power steering pump, if you haven't already located it, you probably bought the wrong car, because this is probably not the job for you. But apart from our carbon fiber that we have right here, a little 50 plus horsepower, right behind it, in between the actual valve cover and the intake, we have our power steering pump. So we're gonna be replacing that one with our new one. First things first, we are gonna have to dismount the intake. Let's get it. Okay, so for the install, apart from your actual power steering pump, we're gonna need a 3/8 ratchet. So grab your ratchet, 3/8, a extension, a deep socket 10mm, a 13mm, and a 10mm. You're also gonna need a turkey baser, just because we're trying to pump out as much fluid out of the system before draining it. Some pliers for the actual hose clamps, a pry bar, or I'm using actually the jack stand pry bar, just because it's gonna give us more leverage when taking the tensioner off to get the belt off, and some gloves. Now these are optional. I'm simply using them because I got a date after, so I'm not trying to get my hands dirty. Therefore we have some gloves, 10mm socket, deep socket. Loosen this up. We can disconnect this back sensor over here for the mass airflow sensor. When the wife wants to go on a date, you got to finish this prior, otherwise she gets cranky and she sells your car. Put this to the side. Here it is. That's the power steering pump, the original one. These are the hoses that we're going to be draining out. There goes one, and then there's one right under. You can't really see it, but it's down there. Let's take the actual belt off. All you need is a 3/8 ratchet. It's going to slide right in. If you can see right there, this is our tensioner, and it's literally going to slide right in, just like that. So we're going to pull down to loosen the tension, and this is what I mean by the actual pry bar. Loosen up the tension and slide the little belt off. The pulley for the power steering pump is now free, and we can adjust the bolts to pop this out. Okay, now before you take off the bolts and drain the actual fluid, we're going to open up our reservoir for the power steering, and we're going to use our turkey baster to take out as much fluid as possible, just so it's an easier cleanup. Shout out to Nestle Pure Life, they're sponsoring this video. Got some of this, just like that. Everyone's invited to the turkey cookout. You're gonna try to get as much fluid out, like I said. Once you get all of it, if not most of it out. Okay, so we got a good amount of power steering out of the system, but we want to get as much out before actually draining it and causing the least amount of mess possible. So grab a buddy, have him inside the car, but with the car off, he's actually going to turn the wheel, allowing for me to get more of the actual fluid from the power steering pump out, and that makes it a lot easier. Hence why the car is actually up on jack stand. So my homie's actually inside right now. He's gonna start turning the wheel, and while he turns, I'm gonna pump out more fluid, and we're gonna try to get it all out. All right, after 10 full turns, all the way to the left and all the way to the right, we were able to get this much fluid out. So now is actually unplugging the actual hoses and draining out all of the fluid that's left inside the reservoir. To make the job easier, I recommend this. You don't have to do it, but if you don't want to get, you know, power steering fluid all over the bottom end of your engine and all these hoses, what I did, or what we're gonna do, is I got a hose from O'Reilly's or AutoZone. Your local hardware store carries them as well. We're actually gonna run this hose all the way down to the actual drain pan down under the car. We're gonna remove the power steering hose, and once we remove this, we're quickly going to slip this in here to allow any fluid that's in here to easily just funnel and go all the way straight down. You're gonna now proceed to taking off the actual hose clamp, just like that, and plug this up. So we forgot to mention one tool that you will need, and it's gonna be a 5/8 wrench, and it's to take out the bottom power steering hose. This one's the high pressure one, so we're gonna take this one out. Now there's not much. Luckily we drained out a lot. Only thing left now is to take the 13mm bolts that are holding the actual power steering pump to the block. Once those are off, we're able to take this off and replace it with a new one. Okay, so the 13mm bolts are going to be located one on the left side, there's one on the right side, and then there's one right under. So you're basically going to have to get your 13mm with an extension, and what you're going to do is through these little holes, you're going to be able to unscrew them out. 1, 2, and then 3. The beautiful thing about this one is the pulley literally lines up to all 3 bolts. So once you have one bolt lined up, the other 2 will be easily lined up, and we can take it out. Quick 13mm, just feed it through, and then once you line it up, we're good to take them out. You're gonna want to ease out the last bolt by hand, and once that third one's off, power steering comes off. 3 bolts, one right here, and the third one's right here. Okay, so here we're looking at the block of the engine. These 3 bolts right here are where the actual fuel, sorry, not the fuel pump, the power steering bolts in. So what you want to do now with your new power steering is just line it up, and then once it's lined up, you can thread in the 3 bolts holding it in place. So revert this as we did with the procedure to remove it, and we can reinstall it. Okay, once you get to the 3rd bolt, you're basically going to torque it down to 20 foot-pounds of torque. All 3 bolts of ours. Only thing left to do now is to attach the high pressure power steering hose from the bottom end. Literally thread it in. After that, the 5/8 wrench, and we're good to go. And then last things last, this is just plug up that drain hose for the power steering, put the pulley back on, and then fill her up. So let's go step by step. Grab your hose, and you're gonna just slide it on. Oh, actually, before we slide it on, we're going to grab our hose clamp and slide it up first. Slide the hose in. Grab your needle nose pliers. Slide your hose all the way in, and then just release, and we're good. 3 bolts are in. The bottom power steering high pressure line is in. The regular hose for draining of the power steering is in. Now we align the pulley with the belt, and we're good to go. Another 3/8 ratchet is in. Release some tension on the actual pulley. Slide the belt back on. Make sure it is aligned all around the pulleys, the bottom AC belt. Now that the pump is in, our belt's lined up with the pulley. Only thing left to do is add some power steering fluid. So we're going with the original Mopar hydraulic system power steering fluid. And we're basically going to add it up to the minimum for now. We're gonna turn the wheel in the on position with the car off. That way, you know, all the air bubbles that are inside can come out. We have the line right in between the min and the max on cold. Now we're basically going to put the car in the on position, turn the wheel all the way to the left, all the way to the right at least 5 times, and then just slowly start topping off before we actually turn the car on and fully bleed and top off the system. Okay, so with the car on, we got my boy inside. He's turning the wheel. You can see right there, it's going up, and then it's slowly coming back down. Now we're going to do this a couple times just to make sure there's no air bubbles. After that, we are going to turn the car on and let all the fluid cycle through the system. If you guys remember, we had it right in between the max and the min on cold before we actually turned the wheel and cycled it through. So it's right at the minimum, which is perfect, just enough for us to turn the car on. Grab your intake, in our case, our carbon fiber one. Slide it over, but before sliding it over, connect the actual blowback and then slide it on. And then after that, don't forget, but do reinstall right here. After this, it's pretty much just game to turn it on, check for any leaks, and leave the system. Okay, so probably the moment everyone has been waiting for, a quick cold start now that the power steering pump is in. So we need to add some fluid now. All wrapped up, all done. Power steering is back in, you know, the engine bay, and the cat is back on the road. We wanted to close this one out with a little pull here at our local, you know, tunnel in Mexico to test out the steering at its full potential. Pulling it up right now, and I believe after this we're just going to close it off. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep it authentic. Peace.